Modeling 3D typography is easy in Max using the TextPlus primitive. This supersedes older workflows using a 2D text shape and a bevel modifier. The TextPlus object is the way to go now. You'll find it in the Create panel, under Geometry, Standard Primitives, TextPlus. Click on that button to activate the tool, and click and drag in the front viewport, and you're initially drawing out a region within which the text will wrap. Release the mouse and right-click to exit that tool. With the object still selected, let's go into the Modify panel and also frame the object in all the views by clicking on Zoom Extents All Selected. And we can adjust the region here in the Layout rollout. If we reduce the width, for example, by clicking and dragging on that spinner, we can constrain the type into a more narrow rectangle. This is helpful if, for example, you need to place the type in a narrow column. Generally, though, you'll probably just want the type to move around like a normal object. And to do that, you can change the type layout to point. And now the type is going to be centered on its own pivot point, and there's no enclosing region. Let's zoom in once again with Zoom Extents All selected, and orbit around in the perspective view with Alt and middle mouse button, and we'll see something strange. We're getting some flickering polygons. That's called Z-fighting. It's happening because the front and back surfaces of the text primitive are coincident. They're superimposed over one another, and the viewport renderer doesn't know which polygons are in front or in back. We'll investigate that in a moment, but first let's look at the basic text parameters. In the Modify panel, there's a geometry rollout, and there's a switch to Generate Geometry. Turn that off, and we don't have any 3D geometry anymore. We've just got the 2D type outlines. Now let's play around with the text parameters. In the parameters rollout, we see the text listed here, and we can of course edit that and make changes to it or its font or whatever. And we can do that on a per character basis. We need to select whatever we wish to change. And then, for example, change the font. We can switch that over to Arial Black. And we can see that some of it's in italics. If we don't want that, we can just select the part that we want to change and turn off the italic flag here. And now it's all just in black without italics. And of course, we can change the actual content of the type. We can type in something here, such as Kinetico, and it changes the type instantly in the viewport. We can also adjust the global parameters, which are not on an individual character basis, but affect all characters equally. We of course have the size, the overall scale, and then there's tracking, which is the spacing between letters, the leading, which is the spacing between baselines. We can also get a faux condensed or extended effect by adjusting the V scale and or the H scale here. If we want, we can reset all of those global parameters. Just click the Reset Parameters button, and we can choose the things that we want to reset. Maybe reset everything globally and per character, and click Reset. Now let's turn on Generate Geometry once again, and we need to give it a non-zero extrude amount. Usually you'll want the extrusion to go behind the pivot point, and that means you'll want a negative extrude amount, so we can just click and drag on that spinner and reduce the extrude amount. Maybe set that to a numeric value of -10 centimeters and press Enter. So that we can see this better, let's get in really close in the perspective view. Dolly forward with Control-Alt middle mouse, and pan with the middle mouse button, getting close on one of those corners. And it'll be easier to see what we're doing if we turn on Edged Faces with the F4 keyboard shortcut. Currently we don't have any beveling, we've just got a right angle extrusion, but we can turn on Apply Bevel, and we've got some options here in this pull-down list, and the default is custom, but we can try some of these presets. For example, we've got a convex bevel, which gives us a traditional rounded bevel. We can maybe get in closer in the side view here, in the left view, and see what that looks like a little bit more closely. And if we look in the back, we don't actually have a bevel on the back by default, but we can do that if we want. To access that, we'll need to turn on Show Advanced Parameters. And then we've got a few more little buttons and bells and whistles here. For example, we have the capping at start and end. We can set the end cap to bevel cap as well. And now we've got A nice rounded bevel on both sides. You can tumble or orbit around and check that out from the back as well. You can also have fun with some of these other parameters, such as bevel push. Adjust that and you can see that it's changing the shape. So we can get a concave bevel instead of a convex one. Bring that back up to a convex. Maybe increase it and you can actually get a kind of interesting outline effect there. I'll bring that bevel push back down to 1. In this case, I just want a simple linear chamfer. I can go into the beveling pull-down list and just set that to linear. And now I've got a straight line chamfer on that edge. We can fine-tune the shape by adjusting the outline amount. So here's the outline offset. We can play around with that. But be careful, because if we take it too far, we're going to have some issues with our geometry. So there's kind of a narrow range that we can use. We can set that outline offset to, let's say, negative 0.5 centimeters. Okay, that looks pretty good. We can click in the perspective view and maximize it with Alt-W and look around and admire our work. That's the essentials of modeling 3D type with TextPlus. In the following movie, we'll fine-tune the transforms of individual characters for advanced typography effects and also adjust the level of detail for the TextPlus primitive.